Yahushua Bashim Kodash. Welcome to another live lesson. The name of this one is They Won't Teach the Bitter Because. I'll explain what I mean by that in a minute. But this video comes from the inspiration of a video I was watching Elder Apostle Gabar had just done. And he was speaking about the bitterness of the scriptures, that we teach 100% and some of these other camps don't. They only really teach stuff that's appealing to Jake, that's not really stirring or rocking the boat, so to speak. And a scripture came to mind, which I'm going to read. But reasoning, as to why a lot of these Israelite groups, their leaders, really it goes back to their leaders, because the congregation is teaching what the leaders teach. And the reason why they won't teach the bitterness of the scriptures is so they won't suffer persecution for the gospel of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushai's sake. And that's the reason why. Now, I just got two precepts I want to bring out, unless the Spirit hits me with something else. The first precept I want to bring out is in the book of Galatians. Now this is dealing with the gospel of Yahushai. It's dealing with a particular issue that was going on back then. Nevertheless, the point is there that the reason why this particular situation took place and they did what they did was because they didn't want to suffer persecution. Now this is the book of Galatians 6 and 12. This is the Apostle Paul speaking to the Galatians after he cursed them out for them being accepted in the Lord by faith or through faith, and then trying to reach salvation by way of keeping the law 100%, because you had Pharisees and Sadducees back then, some of them wicked, some of them righteous, that were trying to compel the Israelite foreigners that in order for them to be saved, they had to keep the law 100%, so they had to be circumcised, so on and so forth. Now, this is what the Apostle Paul told them towards the end of the epistle, Galatians 6 and 12. As many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Yahushua. Which this is the scripture that came to mind as I was listening to Elder Apostle Gabar go through his lesson and dealing with how only Great Millstone really teaches the bitterness of the scriptures, 100%. A lot of those other camps, they sidetrack and push things to the side, or they'll read over stuff, and won't address it. I've seen that many times. They'll read over the scripture that proves that what they're saying is not right, but they'll just read over it and just jump to the next point. And that's what a lot of them do. Now, what I did was I went to the different Bible translations, right? Because I wanted to get a better understanding as to, I understood what the Apostle Paul said, but I wanted to see if there was another precept or precepts in a different translation that kind of gave it a little bit more light to make it a little bit more understandable, right? So I went to the NLT, which is the New Living Testament or translation. Now, keep in mind, a lot of these translations go off on certain things, but on certain key points, they're on point. And this is why we go and we use them, because they make the point a little bit better, than the King James, And we do use other translations to make certain points, but for the most part, we stick to the King James. But the King James is not the only one we use. We've, used that for a long period of time, but that's another lesson, I digress, because that's another lesson for another time. Anyway, NLT, New Living Translation, it says, those who are trying to force you to be circumcised want to look good to others. They don't want to be persecuted for teaching that the cross of Yahushua alone can save. And that's pretty much what it is. It's really by faith. Now, we keep the law to the best of our ability because, the law is still in effect. But keeping the law 100% is not what's going to save us, and we understand that. But just because we have grace and faith, we don't use it as a cloak of maliciousness either. Because the Apostle Paul says, do we make void the law through faith? The Lord forbid. We establish the law. All right? So the point is that these other camps don't want to teach the bitterness of the scriptures because they don't want to suffer the persecution of the truth. You know, they see how, people come at us for teaching what is in the Bible. They see how they pretty much demonize us, bear false witness on us, call us all kind of names, tell us that we're the worst camp in Israel, period. This, that, and the third, and the, But the reason why it's happening is because we're teaching what is written, and they have a problem with it. That's why, as that point where we were reading in Galatians the 6th chapter, they wanted the Israelite foreigners to be circumcised, not because they compelled them or they convinced them to do it, because they really had their best interests at hand or at heart. No, they were doing it because they didn't want to suffer persecution for having a role with Israelite foreigners that were uncircumcised. Because back then that was a no-no. This is Amos chapter 5 verse 10. They hate him that rebuketh in the gate, and they abhor him that speaketh uprightly. So whenever you speak uprightly, we're going to suffer persecution. Yahushua said that if they hear me, they're going to hear you. If they reject you, if they rejected me, they're going to reject you. Matter of fact, let me get that real quick. This is the book of St. John 15 and 18. If the world hates you, you know that it hated me before it hated you. And what is the hate part? The hate part is about the doctrine. Remember, Yahushua said, the world cannot hate you, but me it hateth, because I speak of the world, that the deeds thereof are evil. And that's why they hate us, because we're telling them the truth. And when you come into the truth, you're supposed to have a different mindset. Your mind is supposed to change. But a lot of these individuals, they just learn the truth and stack it on top of the bullshit that they already had before. So they never really become born again. All they do is just take the old man and stack on the new knowledge. And the scriptures say that you can't put new wine in old bottles, at least the bottle of Rin, because the new wine is too powerful to put into old bottles. You have to put the new wine into new bottles. So you have to be renewed in the spirit of your mind in order to be born again, in order to be able to receive the message and not be offended. Yahushua said, blessed are they that are not offended in me. And it says, many shall be offended. So it says, if you were of the world will hear his own. But because you are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. Okay? So that's the point. So what I want to do is, I want to read that again in Galatians. I want to hit one more precept and close the lesson. So the reason why they won't, these other camps out there outside of Great Millstone, for the most part, that don't teach what we teach, the reason why they won't teach the bitterness of the scriptures is because they don't want to suffer persecution. So now I'm going to read Galatians 6 and 12 in the King James again. Then I'm going to read it in the NLT. Read one more precept in that, and we'll close the lesson. Galatians 6 and 12. It says, as many as desire to make a fair show in the flesh, they constrain you to be circumcised. In other words, they force you to be circumcised. And what happened, the Apostle Paul said, who had bewitched you? And that's what they did. They were so adamant about it that the Israelite foreigners, they got nervous. Said, well, wait a minute. Well, maybe, maybe we do have to be circumcised. Maybe we have to keep the law 100%. And forgetting that the reason why they were brought into this was through faith. Right? It says, only, and the only reason why they made you do that, only lest they should suffer persecution for the cross of Yahushua. And when we read that in the NLT, it says, those who are trying to force you to be circumcised want to look good to others, They don't want you to. They don't want to be persecuted for teaching that the cross of Yahushua alone can save. And that's why a lot of these different camps out here, outside of Great Millstone, and not counting the ones that teach what we teach, that don't call themselves Great Millstone, even though they are Great Millstone, but that's another story for another time. The reason why they won't teach the bitterness of the scriptures is because they don't want to suffer persecution. Satan trying to stop the word from going out, but that's all right. They don't want to suffer persecution. Now I'm going to read this one last precept and close out the lesson. This is the book of Isaiah, chapter 30, verse 8. Go, write it before them in a table, and note it in the book, that it may be for the time to come forever and ever, that this is a rebellious people, lying children that will not hear the law of the Lord. And that's why the scriptures say that they hate him that rebuketh in the gate. Because whenever you're bringing out a message to the world that is contrary to the mindset that they've been taught, they have a problem with it. That's why he said they won't come to the light. Scriptures say that the whole world lieth in wickedness. So there's a confliction there between the message that we're teaching of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai and the message that they were taught. So for the most part, most Israelites, even the ones that wake up to the truth, want the truth to conform to their lifestyle. They don't want to conform to the Lord Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. They want the Lord to fit around their schedule. And it doesn't work that way. There's a reason why it says that you have to put off the old man. You have to be born again. You have to the washing of regeneration by the Spirit. So there has to be a cleansing mentally before you can actually fill that cup back up with the goodness that leads to salvation. Because oil and water don't mix. The teachings of the Lord and the philosophies of the world and the thinking of the world and the emotions of the world do not mix with the truth. So it says, which say to the seers, see not, and to the prophets, prophesy not unto us right things, speak unto us smooth things, prophesy deceits. So that's what they want. They want the smooth things. So they will not teach the bitterness of the scriptures because they don't want to suffer persecution, because at the end of the day, Jake doesn't want to hear the harshness and the truth and the bitterness of the scriptures. They want to hear the smooth things. They don't want to hear that that they have to change their lifestyle. They don't want to hear the truth of the scriptures. They don't want to hear it. They want to hear those smooth things. You see? And that's why these teachers, instead of just going straight forward, like the scriptures say in Isaiah 58 and 1, let's read that real quick. Isaiah chapter 58 verse 1. Cry aloud, spare not, lift up thy voice like a trumpet, and show my people their transgression, and the house of Jacob their sins. So the scriptures say to cry aloud and spare not. We ain't supposed to spare their feelings. But a lot of these individuals do not want to suffer persecution for the truth's sake, for the name of Yahweh Bashem Yahushai. So what they do is, instead of teaching the bitterness of the scriptures, teaching the whole 100% gospel, they'll only teach things that are appealing to Jake. They don't want to rock the boat because they don't want to look like the bad guy. They don't want to be the heavies, in the truth. And that goes for the majority of them. That's why if you look at all these different camps outside of Great Millstone, and like I said, there's other camps that teach like we teach. But if you look at all of them, they're all PC Israelite camps, politically correct Israelite camps. They won't correct each other. They won't rock the boat, so to speak. That's where you get these unity camps from, because at the end of the day, nobody wants to ruffle feathers. Boy, the Lord is all about ruffling feathers. Hebrews the 4th chapter, the 12th verse tells you that. The Lord is all about ruffling feathers. He's all about, getting down to the root of the matter. Because when you get down to the root of the matter, that's where the healing process begins. If you just treating a symptom, the underlying condition is not going to go away. So you have to get down to the root, bottom cause of it, cut that out, and then eventually the healing process begins and then continues until it's fully healed. And that's what's happening among all these different camps, is that they're not getting down to the root of the heart of the matter. That's why they won't teach the bitterness of the scriptures. And some of them can't see it because they don't want to see it, you know, and basically because they're blinded, you know. But they don't want to teach the bitterness of the truth because they don't want to suffer persecution for the words of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai.